The Fairmont Royal York Hotel, built in 1929 by the Canadian Pacific Railway, was for a time the tallest building in the British Empire. Originally conceived as a grand railway hotel, it served as a luxurious stopover for travelers arriving in Union Station. The hotel's classic architecture is a living testament to the past glamour of Canadian rail travel, and the next dystopic landmark to be added to the Union Project. Let's get started. As with past projects, I began working on the Royal York Hotel by determining its basic size using Google Maps, Google Earth, and photographs. After sketching the main shapes of the hotel, I realized its 900mm height was nearly twice as tall as my backdrop. To capture its essence, I applied selective compression and reduced the building's height by almost half. As this is only a background structure, I wanted to experiment with a process that could create visually compelling background structures that are only a few millimeters thick and relatively easy to build. I decided that using layers of laser-cut Bristol board would be a quicker way to capture the details of the building without having to construct the entire structure. The hotel features a significant amount of ornamentation, which I didn't want to spend excessive time reproducing. Therefore, I simplified the forms and ornamentation into basic shapes. Through trial and error, I developed a plan to assemble the building using 7 different layers of cardstock and 1 additional layer for details. The first layer of the building was laser-cut black foam core. I chose foam core due to concerns I had about Bristol board warping. Since the final building was larger than the laser cutter's footprint, I divided each layer into 4 quadrants and assembled them individually. To maintain rigidity in the first foam core layer, I used glue and aluminum tape to assemble the individual quadrants. With the foam core layer assembled and painted, I began cutting, priming, and painting each building layer. I lightly primed the Bristol board with spray paint. Given cardboard's tendency to wick moisture and warp easily, I hoped that a light coat of enamel paint would make it more impervious. The window mullions and frames were painted a dark brown, and the visible stone sections were painted with a light creamy color. Once each of the window mullions were dry, I glued strips of acetate sheet behind the windows to create a glazing, and then primed the backs of that plastic with a flat primer. To avoid gluing each layer together with water-based adhesives, I sprayed the backs with a solvent-based glue, similar to rubber cement. This prevented any warping or buckling and allowed me to reposition each layer before it had fully cured. As I added each layer, I strategically airbrushed my standard weathering solution, a mixture of rubbing alcohol and India ink, onto parts of the building that would typically be further away from the viewer. I focused on areas that could have a weathering buildup, as well as other areas to help increase the visual contrast and create the illusion of depth. I painted the roof with a soft green color to mimic the appearance of oxidized copper. As each layer was applied, I added additional weathering using the airbrush to exaggerate the layers and increase some contrast. With all the layers assembled, I allowed nature to reclaim the building and added ground foam to represent overgrowth and vines. With the main structure weathered, I finished the sign on top of the building. I experimented with a series of painting techniques as I wanted the sign to appear if it was glowing red. The final step was to use a white rollerball pen to represent the glowing bulbs inside each of the red letter forms. I added a few bits of vegetation, let everything dry thoroughly, and then added the building to the layout. I am very happy with how this structure turned out, and I like the depth it creates despite its meager 5mm thickness. Moving forward, I'm confident I can create various background buildings, especially the ominous black towers of the financial district. The Fairmont Royal York completely transforms the area designated for Union Station and casts a menacing shadow across the platforms below. Thanks for stopping by. I'll see you next time.